Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our shirim on the Ramchal's Adir BaMarom on the Idir Abba, and we're coming up on Rabbeinu HaRamchal's yard site, which is going to be tonight. Be'ezras Hashem, the sphere of Yesod should be Yesod, and the aspect of Moshe Chaim. Moshe is the Pnimius of Das, it's the elevated site in which the Das of Moshe is mispashit into each and every one of the tzaddikim, and Chaim is the ability to draw that Das down, to give it to those below, meaning that was the role of the Ramchal, Mesilas Yisharim, to be Megala, the Mesilas Belevavam, the secret pathways from the head into the heart that the Ramchal was Megala, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight in a shir, a yahrzeit shir for the Ramchal, on Drush HaKivoy, on the concept of hope in the Torah of the Ramchal, Be'ezras Hashem, and today we're going to continue in the Idir Abba in preparation for the yahrzeit of the Ramchal. So we're continuing on Daf Yud Daled. I'm sorry, not Daf Yud Daled. We are continuing on Daf Yud Beis in the Idir Abba and the Adir BaMarom Machom HaRamchal edition. And we're picking up on the same thread of thinking, same thread of svara that the Ramchal is being Megala when talking about the nature of Malchus. The Ramchal is setting up the space in which human volitional activity is going to take shape, in which human beings are going to be able to develop themselves, thereby revealing the original desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have us reveal his light down here in the middle process that appears to be devoid of the infinite light of the beginning and the infinite light of the end, because the unity that's going to come about when we unify the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the middle place is specifically through our choice, what we're going to reveal is a doubled nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's revelation, because now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found in the beginning and the end, and he's also found in the middle as well. And what the Ramchal wants to give us is a Mesilas Yesharim in which we can experience the process of the refinement of the middle as we are encountering the process of the refinement of the middle, which is what Pnimius HaTorah is coming to reveal to each and every person, that the very concepts that we're often learning about, if one pauses to reflect internally on the mechanics and the inner mechanics of the soul, one will realize that those very things we're learning about are taking shape in the very act of learning about them and contemplating them, thereby uncovering the light of unity within our lives. And in this place of Malchus, in this place of the ability for us to partake of that gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give in the future without any shame, because we have enjoyed the process of the labor and the becoming of the receptacle to receive that blessing, as the Leshem said, and we said it numerous times in the name of the Leshem. The reason that a person benefits far more from the work of their own hand rather than the thing that they're receiving is because when a person earns something, when a person engages in the process of labor, a person comes in contact with themselves. Then ein adam karov ela etza atzmo, that adam karov etza atzmo, rather, a person is considered proximate to themselves. There's a proximity of the self to the self, because the self is rooted in an infinite place of chelik eloi kamimal, so the self can always learn more about itself, and therefore anytime we undergo a process of laborious activity, whether it be in an intellectual level, an emotional level, or a physical level, we are always encountering the dual process of rutz of the shov, tzimtzum, and hispashtus, or the concealment of self and the reduction of energy, and then the re-expression of energy, thereby revealing more elements of ourselves. That's the secret of the self-becoming that takes place through that middle place, what the Ramchal is being megala to us. As a result of the necessary split between apparent darkness and revelation, so as to enable the necessary playing field for volitional activity or bechira, it has to be even, it has to be half-half, it has to appear that concealment is as real, kavyachol, God forbid, as revelation, in spite of the fact that we know that concealment is just another way of revelation taking shape. But that's why we said the Ramchal gives shape to the space of concealment more so seemingly than other tzaddikim, because the building up of concealment as if it appears to have some element of standalone property, God forbid, when one can see that in the writings of the Ramchal, all of that is to reveal the bigger chiddush when we reveal that all of it is still just fundamentally contained within the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show, whether it's darkness or light, and he's revealing himself in both ways. But because that both-way nature is going to take place, there's a split between darkness and light, meaning to say that in its absence, in Malchus, in its original stage, in the way that the body is formed, in the way that this worldly experience is formed, in the way that limitation unfolds from the womb of Bina and the secret of Kel Shakai down to the Yesod of Zer Anpin, in the secret of Shakai, the formation of the externalities possibilities of reality continue at the first stage to appear to be devoid of content and devoid of meaning. It is the body in its indiscretion. It is the body without meaning. It is the shape of the world without meaning. It is the kli of malchus that appears to be devoid of any inherent content other than the very framework and shape in which things take place. But what the Ramchal has been telling us all along is that that's only the chitzonius of malchus, but in truth, the pnimius of malchus, which remains hidden above in Zer Anpin, and it's not the light of Zer Anpin that's going to reveal the pnimius of malchus. The light of Zer Anpin holds the light of the pnimius of malchus, and through the inner work, we draw down that light from Zer Anpin, which is the shlemus of malchus itself, to reveal retroactively that the space of malchus has a fulfillment and a meaning and a content to the container. That's the yichud of Zer Anpin and Nukva. That's the yichud of revealing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the inside as well as the outside. But this two-stage process means that there's going to be the taryag elements of the guf and its externality. There's going to be the concept of the shin dalid of the shem shakai, which creates that formation, that the shin dalid is that notion of an empty space devoid of any inner fulfillment or content. It is the body without the mitzvos. It is the mind or the body without the atar sabris, without that mitzvah of mila that reveals that which is concealed. And it's in that empty, destitute state where it's our job to refine malchus and draw down the fulfillment of malchus. And we always have these two stages. You have this in the shin dalid, and then drawing down the yud into it and revealing the atar sabris, which is the inherent wholeness that exists within the preemptive stage of malchus in her destitution. At the atar sayesod shaba, in that place of atar sayesod, there is this ma'or, this light that comes down of the next taryag mitzvos, which are going to be mashlim, the taryag harishon, and in that place we find the fulfillment or the potential towards fulfillment already hidden within the limitation as well. And that's the secret of drawing down the yud of Shakai and to connect it to the Shindalit of Shakai, which is the connection between the Shem of Havaya and Elohim. It's the connection between the unlimited nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light and the limited nature of vessels. And then we spoke about how this is true above as well. This is true when it comes to the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals his malachim and all the celestial forces that bring about the elements that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has set in motion and the roles that these elements of spirituality play in the unfolding and the Seder Ashtalshalos. Each and everything operates in accordance to its base nature and to the way that it is formed externally in its state of malchus, devoid of the fulfillment element of the nekudas hayesoid or the ateres abris, which is the malchus of Zer Anpin itself, which comes to be mashlim, the malchus of malchus. And it's only when we can draw down that light from above, that yud, to be mashlim the shem shakai, that we have the ability of revealing the yichud of the two elements of malchus together, the fulfillment of malchus, the drawing down of the second set of taryag mitzvos, of the 365 mitzvos lois aseh and the 248 mitzvos aseh, and drawing them down to the first stage of that empty state of taryag, which is the 248 limbs and the 365 sinews, drawing the content and the inner meaning into the external vessel. And this applies across the board with all of the metaphors and the analogies that the Ramchal has been using. And we spoke about how all of these ma'oros, all of these revelations, the malchus itself is really the chafbez osios haTorah. There's nothing more basic than the osios. There's nothing more present than the osios themselves and their irreducible ink upon the page, those blots of ink with the dots and the lines that form the formations that rest at the formation of all of existence, the 22 letters, the asfan, the araisa, the kedusha saosios that the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh came along to reveal to us again in the secret of Lag BaOmer, which is that in the end of the day, a person starts off with the bare osios, and then a person descends into the quest for knowledge to fulfill those osios. And then the most important thing to do is not to forget the osios, God forbid, but to return back to the osios with that fulfillment, but to remember the irreducible nature of the osios themselves, that within the pshat, within the most revealed element of the Torah, which is the osios, is hidden the sod, the secret meaning of the irreducible content that is hidden within the very basic principles of the osios. And that's when I look at the sod shebepshat, I look at the depth of the osios, I come to understand the pshat shebesod, which is the osios as well. And it's those osios which are just present and abiding without the hitznoitzitzitz of the ha'ara that comes to create all of the sirufim that draw down oros. That's the same relationship between the first taryag of the body, which appears to be empty and devoid, and the second taryag of the mitzvos, which are going to be mashlim them, or the shin dalid of shakai and the yud, which is going to be mashlim it into shakai, or the shem eloikim, which has to draw down the shem havaya, or all of those elements of limitation without the inner content of limitation. So those osios need the hitznoitzitzutz, they need the spark that emerges to enliven that os. But without it, they just appear to be stones. They appear to be osios that are devoid of any content. They appear to be empty in their presentness. But in truth, it's our job to draw down the hisnoitzitzos and to draw down that illumination of the osios. And with that, we'll continue with the osios amiros b'Yisrael on Daf Yud Beis. Zakt the Ramchal. Vihine kenhu. And so too, it's true with regards to the ois when it comes to Klal Yisrael. When it comes to the experience of a Jewish person in this world, the dual relationship between that prior stage of emptiness and the secondary stage that fulfills that emptiness to reveal the inherent wholeness that existed within the emptiness prior to that revelation. Ki bebechinas hashin dalid levad lo yesh ella ha'aros shel ha'hitznoitzitzos. When we look at the notion of Shindalid on its own, that notion of the shade, that notion of that formless spirit that doesn't have a final shape to it to make it something significant or fundamental, that concept of meaninglessness that appears to continue to function in the form of meaning, which is a shade, which is this kind of demonic, not a demonic force, but an empty spirit that is devoid of its actualization. It is an idea that has been arrested in its development, that's somewhat congealed, yet not fully congealed, as the Maharal points out. This element of Malchus that's without the fulfillment of Malchus, without that Yud, it doesn't have the Ha'ara of the Osios. All it is the Osios. When I just have a Shin Dalid, when I just have the formation of shape without the fulfillment of the meaning that gives purpose to that shape, which is the Yud of Shakai, so then all I have is the empty Osios without the Hitznoitzitzutz, without the sparking of the Osios, which could very well be the Ramchal hinting to the world of Olam HaMalbush, of the Kabbalah of Mahari Sarug, which is the sparking of the initial desire of a Kadosh Baruch Hu to create existence from within the very depths of infinitude to the limited nature of our understanding, which takes place by way of the frictional force that gives birth to the sparks that form into osios themselves of the Torah Hakaduma. Ki heim im ha'osios bilvad banu es haguf v'hashkatos b'makoma. Because in truth, when it comes to the guf, when it comes to the way that things appear in their place, in their abiding nature of malchus, devoid of fulfillment, so then you can have a body. It's also made up of osios, and it's devoid of the inner content. But when a person, through the act of bris milah, through the act of revealing that which is always perpetually concealed, and recognizing the fact that Hashem created the world deficient so that we can be mashlim ourselves by way of recognizing that deficiency, which is the secret of bris milah. So when we connect that Yud of Shakai, so that's when the Osios are going to be revealed and illuminated in their illumination, which is the secret of drawing down the second Taryag Mitzvos into the Taryag of the Guf, of drawing meaning into content. And because the only way to draw down this Yud, to draw down this inner fulfillment of the external casing of this worldly experience is only through the act of a mitzvah, which is an act that is endowed with spiritual significance by dint of the fact that Hashem decided that through this particular act we will have the capacity to draw down a residual expression of the infinite light. In came hadavar maser b'yadehem, because it's dependent on an action, because it's dependent on labor. So now this ability to draw down that yud, that to be mashlim, the shade, and transform it into shakai, which is the secret of the yisoid, which is mashpiyat malchus. So now it is going to be within the hands of human beings in order to perform this and to do this through the secret of bechira. And when we engage in this action, in the bris milah, or the secret of any mitzvah, which is ultimately a recognition of the bris milah is correspondent to the 613 mitzvahs, and it corresponds to our ability to speak. It represents all expressive tendencies of the human being, which is perpetually in the secret of a concealment for the sake of the revelation, which is the revelation of the Ataras HaBris, to be mashlim malchus. And when we draw down that yud, so we draw down the light to illuminate those osios, to give life to the shape of the externalities of malchus. So in this world, which is cut through with zmaniyut, this is a notion that we're going to see throughout the Idir Rabba Be'ezras Hashem and the Ramchal specifically, the temporal breakdown of past, present, and future, when we find ourselves in a space of time, which is a result of the Olam HaTohu, which is a result of the Shtira, which gives birth to the Partsufim of Ma and Ben, which is the gematria of Zman, because to be within time is to be always post the traumatic breakdown that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to utilize to create the shape of existence, which is the Shiras HaKelim. So we find ourselves in time. And for the Ramchal, one of the fundamental, and the Balasulam and his Talmud Muflak, Rav Binyamin Sankovsky, discusses this very, very powerfully, that the symptom of time is that things are present and then they're absent, present and then they're absent. One thing takes place of the other, and then something else comes along to take place of that thing which took place of the previous thing. something takes place right now in front of my eyes, and then it descends down into the past, and a new future becomes the present moment, and it's one by one by one by one, where one thing is present, and by nature, everything else is absent. And that means that there's going to be times of connectivity and times of disconnectivity, or the apparent awareness of the durational lag between status and structure in those moments without seeing unity. That's the secret of Zman. And so, as long as we're found in Zman, this hashlama, this mitzvah, this activity that we're engaged in, represented too by the bris milah, which is the drawing down of the yud to connect it to the shade, which is the drawing down of the inner meaning of the taryag to be mashlim, the external shape of the taryag. It appears to be present only temporarily in certain moments and then swallowed up by the transiency of it all. This is what the nature of Olam Hazeh is, that something is present and then it's absent. The Ramchal describes this as human ze'irin, the notion of a lack of time, a shortened day, where a person is rushing, afraid of time's process, as opposed to yuma arichta or human arichin, which is the elongevity of time, which is the benefits of a framework of time, so that I could orient myself to splitness, yet nevertheless with none of the negative symptoms of time, with none of the rushing or the anxiety or the fear or the scarcity. So the Ramchal is saying, by doing this through our own activity in the middle, in the time of Zman, we create these tikkunim. But the kviyas, the perpetuality of something, the ever-present nature of something, the structured nature of something being firmly planted, where there's no distinction between having or not having, now and then, or now and after, but rather in the Zman of Nitzchias, where everything is present at once, and Avada, person has access to this place of Nitzchias in their mind. That's what this entire Sefer is teaching us how to live with, to enter back into Gan Eden with a mindset of Nitzchias, while still remaining in a mindset of time, not forgetting a mindset of time, God forbid, but drawing down Nitzchias into time itself. And how do we know? The secret, says Ramchal, is tzadikim yoshim v'itresayim bireshayim. The secret of nitzchias, the secret of these hashpaos, of the inner content of reality, and the neshama being mayor the guf, and the yud being mayor the shakai, and the havaya being mayor the eloikim, and the or being mayor the oisios, and the malachim being mayor the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the shlichus from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is revealed in the future to have been always perpetual in the secret of tzadikim yoshvim v'itresayim v'reshayim. And as Rabbi Nachman said, and we spoke about this so often, a deal can be made on this promise of, it should really say that the tzaddikim will sit with their crowns on their head, because the crown is very often representative of a gift that comes from beyond the individual, and therefore it rests upon the individual like something that's surrounding. A keser is a surrounding thing. But over here in this pasuk, it's v'itresehim bireshayim, that crowns are going to be in their heads. And Zakt Rabbi Nachman, and we know the connection between Rabbi Nachman and the Ramchal. Rabbi Nachman is Netzach, so Benetzach. The Ramchal is Yisoid, should be Yisoid. Rabbi Nachman would tell Talmidim, or prospective Talmidim, to learn Metzil Sisharim before coming to him. There's a deep connectivity between those two tzaddikim in terms of the concealed books and the hidden books, and the machloikas v'chulei. And so we have the ability to extrapolate a teaching from Rabbi Nachman to apply it here also, that when the Ramchal is talking about the secret of Nitzchias, where all of these things are present perpetually, that's still something that's accessible in the here and now within the framework of Zman. Shema tikkunim shetaknu b'chayehim. These are all the tikkunim that a person engages in their day-to-day life. Kikol Zman habechira, as long as a person has the volitional capacity, which is built upon the half-to-half nature of world, of concealment and revelation that enables volitional choice, hadavar tzarech liyos maser biyad ha'adam. It is dependent upon our labor. It is dependent upon our work of our hands. Afterwards, in the future, it will be revealed how it was never ever actually dependent on the work of our hands, but rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the gift of feeling that it's dependent upon the work of our hands. But for the time being, it appears to be Tali in Zman, which is a yes and a no, in spite of the fact that the secret of Nitzlius is that it's always a yes. V'hinei b'tefillin pirshu zal, and this comes back originally to the question that the Ramchal asked: why is tefillin not originally found in the body itself? Because theoretically, the shape of Malchus should be mushlam itself, but in truth, what the Ramchal has been setting us up all along is to answer this question of, why am I not born with a pair of tefillin? Why do I not have a protrusion from my forehead representative of the fact that my mind and my chachma, bina, and das is the place that extends outwards to be receptive and experiencing the process of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's connection to me? And the Ramchal is explaining fundamentally that the body theoretically should have tefillin, but in truth, it is our responsibility to draw down the tefillin. That's the secret of the os. It's something that we have the ability to put onto our heads. The secret of the bris milah, the secret of the fact that we have to refine the external shape, and it has to be us who bring about the fulfillment of the external shape. Had a person been born with tefillin and other osos, so then there would have been no necessity for a person revealing that inherent wholeness that exists within fragmentation, because fragmentation would have been swallowed up. Because of the apparent emptiness of malchus prior to the the revelation of the wholeness of Malchus through the Hamshacha of the Atar Sabris, which is the Yud down into the shade, or the Havaya down into Elohim, or the light that is Mashlim Malchus that is hidden away in Zer Anpin, the Vav that's Mashlim the Matzah into the mitzvah, like the Ramchal has been telling us. The reason that the body is not born with tefillin is because it's our job to draw it down to reveal the fulfillment of the body itself. When it comes to tefillin, Pirshu Zal, Chazal tell us, V'ro kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra Allah. That is through tefillin that the entirety of the world, the nations of the world, are going to see the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name is revealed upon us. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name is revealed upon us by way of the actions that we draw down the name of Hashem. Because just as we explained above in the previous year, that the malachim, when there's a ha'ara and hitznaitzes, they draw down the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu upon their heads, and that's the only time that the malachim have the capacity to do their avodah. So too, when it comes to Klal Yisrael, because we also have the hitznaitzes of these osios, the light that comes to illuminate the letters in the secret of the yesod on top of the head of the malachim above. Why? We also have this ability to draw down that light to illuminate the oisios hanefesh through the act of binding ourselves, our arm and our head, with the oisios haTorah to reveal the inherent wholeness that exists within the body itself, specifically by way of drawing down something external to it, which is the tefillin shabarosh. But except above by the malachim, each and every malach is only one letter, and each and every malach represents a particular mission, and it doesn't represent every other mission. He called So when it comes to the celestial forces of chitzonius, even though malachim appear to be higher, that's only from the perspective of chitzonius, from the mechanics of existence, but from the pnimius, from the inner essential nature of existence. Klal Yisrael is avada l'malam min malachim. As Rabbi Nachman opens up, as a matter of fact, the second volume of Likutei Moharan. He called seven meos achas yoytze. Ach be Yisrael meirim kol daladois yoytze havaya ki mikulam and yoytzim. The chiluk is that we have all four letters. We have all four expressions: the yud, the k, the vav, the k, the beginning of expression, the beginning of concealment, the continuity of expression through the vav after the first encounter with concealment, and then the secondary state of concealment, this pasdash hasheni that reveals the full expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light in this world. Ki mikulam him yotzu. This is the os that we reveal upon ourselves. This is the secret of the tefillin. Kishem Hashem nikra aleinu. But just like the malachim have to draw it down through the hitznaitzes to be mamala, that empty letter, so too Klal Yisrael have a body that appears to be empty that needs to be bound with the light above to draw it down to fulfill it. Bechinas zu nikra ois, and this is the secret of an ois. This is a sign that is attached to the body that's drawn down. Dahainu elu haksharim shemikskashrim ala adam levad me briosav sha'ashayrish miskalav nikshav shayrish alav. An ois is the secret of the connectivity and the connections that a person can draw upon themselves from the sense of their essential creation itself. That the root, that the foundation, that the body is existence and its emptiness. It's, as the Ramchal referred to before, as kihema oisios banu es haguf v'shaktoitz b'makoimim, that the letters themselves, devoid of the inner content, simply create the thing itself and they rest in their abiding nature. Those osios are now going to have a hiskashrus, and they're going to draw down the light from above, which is the light of their source. Shahashirish miskalav and hiskashr v'shar alem. V'gam l'mala b'zer anpin, and this also happens above in zer anpin. This happens on every parts of Eila ha'ari sub'b'chinas ha'ari yisera nimshachas misharash alav. And just as Malchus is being mashlim itself from the fulfillment that exists by zer anpin, drawing down that fulfillment of Malchus, so too zer anpin is doing the same thing, except it's in relationship to the parts of Abina and the secret of Kel Shakai. Like we said in the last year, that same process, different level, that what happens in the Yesod, the Zer Anpin, is also happening in the Yesod, the Ima, except in Ima, it's a Kel Shakai, and down here, it's just a Shem Shakai, and it's the difference between Olam Abriya, which is the parts of Bina, which is going to be Kel Shakai, versus the parts of Yetzira, the Olam HaYetzira, which is going to be connected to the Yesod of Zer Anpin, which is going to be Kel Hashem, which is what the Ramchal described to us. So too, when it comes to the parts of above, the Arizal speaks about the Hamshachas HaMoichin, which is like the levush of tefillin, which is taking place, but without the tefillin themselves, which is being makosher to the guf. It's a different type of process. The tefillin diad, and when it comes to the tefillin of the hand, the tefillin deroish, koishrim, lekutch b'richu v'shlinte, and the tefillin of the hand and the tefillin of the head, the connection of the action and the connection of the mind, the love of the hands and the love of the mind, the offering of the guf and the neshama to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is the thing that is going to connect us and draw down the connectivity between Kudsha B'richa v'Shchintei. Kein mamish b'chinas oisu. That's the secret of tefillin. Oisu b'tzeva shaloi. V'akol tali b'yud d'shakai. And all of this is dependent upon the yud of shakai. That ateres habris that comes down to be mashlim the bris shuhu ha'ois keniska la'el. V'hinei adam harishon, says the Ramchal. This reality that the human being had to draw down fulfillment to reveal the inherent wholeness that exists in the apparent deficiency of malchus, to bring about the connectivity of the middle to the beginning and the end through the volitional labor of our own hands, this was far easier for Adam Arishon before the degradation of existence that takes place to the mind, to the spirit, to the sense of self, to the capacity of self, from being in Gan Eden to after Gan Eden. The Ijra Rabbah is really a book about this transitionary process of leaving Gan Eden and exiting oneself into that place of outside of Gan Eden, and the secrets of what we can do even when we're outside of Gan Eden to draw down the light of Gan Eden and to create Gan Eden where we are. We're going to see this is going to be the Klal Gadol throughout Ijra Rabbah and all of the Tikkunim and the Zohar HaKadosh. It's all about creating a space of Gan Eden even outside of Gan Eden. And so by Adam Arishon, it was far easier. It was far easier. Hushu Kfar Nivra Mohul, because born in Gan Eden, Adam Arishon was Nivra Mohul. This revelation, the knowledge of the fact that it has to come about by way of human action was clear. La'avdu l'shamra, but it didn't have to be so difficult at that point, and therefore Adam Arishon didn't have to go through the process of Mila, go through that process of revealing that which is concealed and drawing down the recognition that it's specifically through the human activity we're going to be mashlim, the parts of Hashalim of that Taryag Chitzayni with the Taryag Panimi and the Yud with the shade. And it was already present in front of him, prepared for him, just to wait for Shabbos to draw down those osos, to draw down those signs that were dependent on the yud that's mashlim l'shem shakai. Ki avodas hayilias biyoter revacha ubenakala mimasha hayata. Because Adam Arishon's job, there was always going to be avoda. There was never ever perfection. The fundamental awareness of Yiddishkeit and Pnimius HaTorah is there was never ever perfection, especially in Gan Eden. There was still the call of the L'Shamra to reveal the Pnimius through the actions of our own hands to be mayor the inherent light of the Chitzonius. Because a Kadosh Baruch Hu could have done it on his own, but we're the ones who have to reveal that it's only a Kadosh Baruch Hu who's Mushlam, and it's Kedushasi l'malam Kedushasechem Tamid. But in Gan Eden, it was a far easier process. It was meant to be an easier process. Adam Arishon just had to recognize it in a different way. Life was not meant to be as difficult as it appears to be right now. The drawing down of the Yud was not meant to be so hard. But because the world went through this transgressive diminution that placed things back in their doubled state of deficiency, as nimsa orla. What we find is the covering. We find the concealment that blocks the bris milah, that blocks the ateres habris. That we find the covering that needs to be cut away. This is the secret of Adam Arishon. Chazal say he drew over the covering that would cover over that os bris. Meaning to say, did he really do it? Did he not really do it? What the Ramchal is being masbi here is the oimek hadavarim, not to be yoitze from the pshat hadavarim, but the oimek hadavarim. The oimek hadavarim is that it drew down this light of concealment where that original light of the or kitov of that or hagonas was concealed, and now there had to be an actual act of cutting away. Because now Adam Arishon, now human beings don't even have the basic preparation inherent within themselves to prepare themselves to be makabel the mitzvos. That's something that we have to do. We have to enter into that first mitzvah of bris milah. And we see that it took so long. It takes 26 generations up until Adam Arishon to Matan Torah to have one nation, Moshe Rabbeinu, who's Noiled Kitov, it was Noiled Mohul, that is the capacity to be Mataki in the Chet of Adam Arishon. You see how distant now human nature is from the natural tendency to be Mashlim the Ratzon Hashem. It took 26 generations. And in truth, what the Ramchal explains very, very powerfully, and we're going to see this, is that the ability to access the mindset of Adam Arishon before the Chet was lost after Dor Hamabil. We can still access Hitz Noitzitz, it's an erosion of this, but after Noach, that ability to get back to that ease with which Adam Arishon was meant to experience existence was lost to us. And after the Mabul was almost like a second creation, as we explained elsewhere on page 42, we're going to see. And then after the Mabul, HaKadosh Baruch Hu started again to hopefully have someone who's going to eat from the Eitz Chaim, and instead Noach plants the Eitz Hadas. But Noach was also born Mahul Kamo Adam Arishon. He also had that general orientation towards the likelihood of being aware of what my actual mission in this world is without being distracted by the guf. The guf is distracting enough in its emptiness and its pure presentness, but now we don't even have the natural tendency to tame the guf, and the guf is left more with its animalistic desires because now we're no longer Nolan Mahul. And this is Noach was born Mahul, Olam Roili Takenaz. And then theoretically it was theoretically okay. Noach's time was another time where again we know that Hashem Lamabel Yashav, there was this noitzitzus of a desire, as Rav Tzadok points out, to draw down Matan Torah at that time. So there was a preparation to be mitaken the Chet of Adam Arishon, which was the concealment of that first stage of Malchus and its emptiness, which was now two steps devoid of light instead of just the one step devoid where it was already prepared to receive the light. And in truth, Noach HaTzadik started to fix things. Ad shelo haya kliya b'soif eser deirosav kamei b'soif daras ha'adam, to the degree that the light of Noach doesn't fundamentally end. The world of Mashiach is going to be a world of Noach. The world of Mashiach is not necessarily going to be the world of Adam Arishon. It's going to reveal how it's still connected to the world of Adam Arishon and the secret of Adam, which is Rosh Tevos Adam, David, Mashiach. But from our perspective, we can't access back to that place of Adam Arishon because we can only start from the mindset of Noach. And we see that Noach has a continuity. Even after the 10 generations, there's still a continuity. So we see that that preparatory process that Noach revealed is already a stage of the preparation for the final Geula, where that light is going to be drawn down explicitly into the body itself. Ad shelo kliya. Ella adirabba. But rather it was a continuity. But Avram Avinu came along, and he was a not nolad mohul. Avram Avinu was the first one to say, now we're going to have this ability for everybody to do it. This is the secret of the beginning of the Tikkun HaOlam, which is the secret of Avram Avinu. The Kibla loves schar kulam. Avram Avinu comes and takes this reflection of Noach and Adam Arishon and transforms it into something everybody could do. Va'az netak and Nagamri. And now we're ready for the hamshacha of the mitzvos onto the gufa taryag. Now we have the or that can be mashlim, the externalized kli. V'haya tashlim tikkun zeh and the fulfillment of this was at Matan Torah, and had it not be for the Chet HaEgel, which was the element of Himshich or Lasso, Odpam, and that concealment, then Mashiach Tzidkenu would have arrived, and it was Charus al Luchos, as we know. And the rest of the world that did not have this revelation of the inner point were still stuck in their externality. And in the way that things continue, everything is going to go up, but it's still going to be stuck in that place of after Chet Adam Arishon. And Klal Yisrael, through the secret of Mila, are going to be one step above, not better, just one step above, through the chosenness and the essential nature of what it means to be Nishmas Yisrael. And therefore, nobody else has access to Torah and mitzvos, because this fundamental accessibility to a state of pure rectification through the secret of Bris Milah comes about through Avram Avinu. Tefillin and tzitzis, those externalized osios that we draw down upon ourselves to reveal the inherent wholeness. All of the mitzvos that are called an os, an os, the mitzvah of an os, is the mitzvah that we draw down, and by doing it, we reveal the inherent connectivity and the inherent wholeness of the body itself, the hashlam of malchus, levad, malchus, to reveal the inherent wholeness that exists simply in the dumus of the Adam itself. The hamshacha of the tselim into the dumus is the hamshacha of the yud into shaddai. It's the hamshacha of the taryag mitzvos into the taryag evari haguf. But the revelation of the preparation of the body to be mushlam, to be prepared through the act of tefillin and tzitzis, to reveal the inherent wholeness and bris milah, the inherent wholeness of the externality of malchus that is prepared to receive the fulfillment of malchus. That would have been enough. Livnois beside dumus adam v'chnas malchus v'tfliyum kuliyum bat tarash yisod. But everything is now dependent upon the hamshach of the Taryag Yesod, which is the secret of the tselem, which is the secret of drawing down that inner content into a person's experience. Be'ezras Hashem.